Hey girl, Marissa here. You are listening to the Codependent Dummy podcast. As a young woman, you have been raised, reinforced, and rewarded for putting the needs of others above your own. Now, in your 20s, you're finding yourself exhausted, exasperated, and enveloped in shit relationships, especially the one you have with yourself. Codependency is a way of being where we put the feelings, wants, and needs of others above our own in an unconscious attempt to meet our own feelings, wants, and needs. Sorry to break it to you, sis, but that is not sustainable. This podcast is to help you undo all that so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. Let's get to it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Codependent podcast. Today, you will hear Miss Kelli Younglove. She is a consciousness coach, an anxiety whisperer, and the creator of the Boundary Course, Creating the Container of You, a contemplative e-course that teaches boundary fundamentals for people pleasers and controllers. Kelli, thank you for coming on.
Oh, hi, Marissa. It's so good to be here with you today.
Thank you. All right. First and foremost, I'm curious how you define codependency.
Oh, I have a couple of ways just because codependency for me showed up in different ways. So the first for me was I really used people pleasing to get that delicious hit of approval to really overcome my own feelings of unworthiness and my feelings of inner shame and my low self-esteem.
Right.
And then I would say the second for me was I was overly involved in people's lives. So I was all up in their business and I was taking responsibility for things that weren't mine. And I was taking care of their needs while completely denying that I even had needs, which really is a form of self-abandonment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other ways it showed up in these different ways?
Oh my gosh. I sort of flip between being a people pleaser and a controller. So I think sometimes without even realizing it, because all of this behavior is unconscious, I was trying to control their opinion of me because I was so desperate for them to love me or like me, because if they didn't, then that meant I wasn't okay. So yeah, some, covert controlling strategies in there that, appeared to be nice, like smiling when I didn't really feel like smiling. But, I have many stories, Marissa, because I spent most of my life as a codependent.
Let's hear some of those stories.
Okay, well, then I'm going to take you right back to the beginning. I'm going to take you back to my very first codependent relationship. I was raised in a really strict religious environment. And so I was taught from an early age to put the needs of other people before my own. And I was also taught, that it was virtuous, especially for women, to be self-sacrificing and pleasing and accommodating and sweet and kind. And so anger was really frowned upon, even grumpiness or, if you were irritable, that wasn't considered nice. And so I wasn't even allowed to say no. And, that means you start going into self-denial or denial of self, of your true self. And so, by the time I was 8, I was already calling in friendships that, weren't really right for me, meaning I was gravitating toward those stronger personality types, those more dominating personality types, because I felt so disconnected from myself. I felt so weak and wobbly on the inside. And when I was in grade 4, I met this girl, and we'll call her Elizabeth, and we became best friends for all the wrong reasons.
Mm.
So I was the bird with the broken wing, and she was my protector. And while we had a lot of fun together, um, over time, that protectiveness really turned into possessiveness.
Wow.
And I made Elizabeth my inner authority.
Right.
Um, and I'm sure you are, I'm sure you know about this. But I began to become really dependent on her approval. So here I am, this little kid, and I'm so worried. Is she going to like what I'm wearing? Is she going to make fun of me? Is she going to be mad that I don't want to go swimming? I want to stay at home and read a book. I because I wasn't really allowed to say no, then I always said yes, even when I meant no. And, you actually recorded an awesome episode called I Don't Want to Be Here, but Here I Am.
Mm.
And, Marissa, that was my theme song for so many years of my life. I
Right.
don't want to be here. And so I went to a lot of parties with Elizabeth as we got older that I really didn't want to go to. She's an extrovert and I'm an introvert, and I have a highly sensitive nervous system. So being around that loud, chaotic energy, that can really throw me off balance if I'm there for too long.
Right.
But, I didn't know how to advocate for my needs back then. I had no boundary awareness. And so, Elizabeth wants to party till 3 or 4 in the morning. I stayed till 3 o'clock or 4 in the morning because I was putting her needs before my own in, really self-harming ways.
Mm-hmm.
And, by the time we made it to our 20s, I was filled with a lot of anxiety because I didn't want to be in the relationship anymore. It felt
Wow.
suffocating to me. But I didn't know how to get out. I didn't know I was allowed to be separate. I didn't have any tools. I didn't know how to deal with that really pushy, controlling energy. And so I stayed, and I stayed for a total of 30 years.
Wow.
I know. Wow is right. And so I stayed way too long because I had really flawed ideas about loyalty and friendship and love. And what I really want your listener to know is that love is based on freedom, not control.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't be your true self, and you can't set limits, and people aren't accepting your no, then it's not a healthy relationship. And what I like doing is helping people have healthy relationships, first with themselves and then with others.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to, you made Elizabeth your inner
Mhm.
authority.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is something in my own codependency, in my work with patients, my work with listeners. I spontaneously uttered those words one time, and I was like, oh my gosh, that yes, like codependence, we just, depending on the season, we pick a person and they're tagged, they're it. You are my inner authority. I'm codependent. I want to please everybody, but I can't, or else I'm paralyzed. But I will please you and then neglect other relationships, myself, etc. Mm-hmm.
That's a really great way to put it. Yeah, thank you. I just got sort of this light bulb moment because I made her my world, and I really didn't have I did have some friendships, but not very many
Mm-hmm.
because, Elizabeth was, my
Your
higher
inner
power.
authority.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
my
Your
inner
higher
authority.
power. Yes, I've talked about that too recently. I've been integrating more. I'm on my own spiritual path, but talking about it more on the podcast. and just reflecting how people really have been my God. I didn't know it consciously, but I was wishing they would do something. So I was basically praying in my like own inner codependent church that they would change. And I spent all my time trying to please them. Yeah, like there's some divine being. The way some people honor and revere their God was how I honored and revered and worshiped humans. So
I love this so much. I love this so
yeah.
much. Yes. And I think that's why I didn't leave, is because I was afraid of this punishment, this kind of punishment, this withdrawal of love, not realizing that love comes from me, and that it doesn't just come from, like in this case, Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's beautifully put.
Yeah. Kelli, how did that relationship end?
Oh, badly.
Mm.
Badly. I wish I could say that I ended it nobly and that I used nonviolent communication, but I used very violent communication.
Mm.
It happened over the phone, so there was no fists involved, but there might as well have been, because I was very threatening, I was very angry, I was very explosive. But the thing is, Marissa, I didn't have the tools back then, and it was a necessary ending. And so I wish I could have done it better, but I didn't. And at the end of the day, I'm so glad that I stood up for myself, even though I did it badly, and that I chose me, because my path really opened up after I did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just for all the listeners, ideally, for our toxic, unhealthy, unsustainable relationships, the ideal would be to sit with the person, look at them face to face, assert our feelings, thoughts, and needs, and end amicably. And yet, the friendships, I've talked about it, but there's always more content to share. I've ghosted so many people. Or yeah, I've gone out blazing with my middle fingers in the air, just in so much shame with my behavior after the fact. But yeah, I haven't thrown a wine glass in anyone's face, but metaphorically, I've done that. And just going from one extreme of people pleasing and putting someone else's needs above my own, just totally flipping, like these are my needs and I'm demanding them, and rageful, and I don't care what you think anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the exploding doormat is all about. I denied my needs for so long, and that always causes resentment to build. Always, always, always. And so because I wasn't in tune with myself, I couldn't even tell my own limits, and I couldn't recognize my own body's sign that I needed some time away, or I needed to set a boundary. I didn't even know how to do that. So yeah, I would go from nice, right to rage. But in this case, and this is what I want everyone to hear as well. And so thank you for bringing it up. You don't have to, if you need to get away from someone, you do not have to do it in a sweet, kind, generous way. Get out in any way that you have the capacity to at that time. But yeah, it would be nice to look back on that. But I have no regrets, because I truly am free now.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. It was probably a year, maybe a year and some change. And I have different, I'll call her like an accountability partner, an entrepreneur, therapist, and we were meeting. And over time, I had so many accountability partners and group calls and coaching. And so I discerned it was best that I stopped meeting with her for different reasons. And I was thinking about it and sensing I needed to end it. And I kept meeting with her, and I kept meeting with her, and I kept meeting with her, because I couldn't, I was so worried about how she would perceive me ending
Yeah.
our weekly call. So it took what it took. I sent a very kind email, and then I went to therapy to share the good news. And my therapist was like, "How come you couldn't tell her on a call when you two were face to face?" And I was like, "I don't know." Like,
Nope.
and I work with him. I continue to work with him, and yeah, also at the same time in that moment, right? Just being potentially more sensitive to codependent. It's like, oh, what was it like to send that email? Right?
Mm.
Just being more explorative as opposed to like, face to face would have been preferred. I was like,
I love that you shared this, because this is the thing. We need training wheels.
right,
I think we are allowed to be exactly where we are in the process and not to have to rush our evolution.
right.
It's a really big deal. It depends how codependent you are. For me, I was paralyzed and terrified, and it caused me to have a huge, stress response in my entire body. You can probably even see me, flushing red now, just at the idea of it from the past. The
Mm,
idea of disappointing someone, or, I equated it with burning in hell. So, how nice to be able to do it in face to face. Yes, that's maybe the ideal, but many of us are so far from there. And what my 20-year-old self couldn't do, I'm 55 now. So I still am wobbly with some people, and that's okay. And for
right.
some people, I can be really clear and really firm, and other people still trigger some things from my past, and that's okay. And I know how to self-soothe myself. But no, sometimes a text is just fine as
Mm,
long as you are being true to you. Never abandon yourself. That's the number one priority.
right. And don't be codependent on pleasing someone else's definition of a healthy
Yes.
goodbye. Yeah.
Yes, this work is all about tuning in to see what's right for us,
Yeah.
what actually feels like truth for us. Again, that's still a form of looking outside to an expert to tell us what our truth is or should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, big stuff.
So with the the boundaries you help your coaching clients create,
Mm,
I sense like codependency boundaries are an overused, understood term.
mm.
Can you give us the 101 definition of what
Wow.
a boundary is?
Yeah, you're really right about that, actually. Um, well, I'm just going to start with how boundaries help codependency, and then maybe we can get at it from there. um, Codependents, they don't know themselves because they're not connected to themselves. Their focus is out there on other people and other people's experience. So they're looking to others, for all the answers. They're looking to others for their sense of security. They're looking to others for their sense of self-worth. And so the boundary work, for a codependent, actually for all of us, is really to start helping them come home to themselves. And that means coming home to the body,
Mm,
because the heart is in the body. Our wisdom is inside our body. And, that knot in your stomach, it means something. Those inner physical sensations, they're trying to tell us where a boundary needs to be set or honored, or when something's not right for us, or when our body lights up. Ooh, that is something that feels good to us. That's a hint about who we are and what kind of creature we are.
right.
And so this whole idea of coming home to the body is so that you can start a relationship with yourself. And, any healthy relationship starts by checking in and having a conversation. How are you? What do you need today? What am I feeling? Is there any, form of self-care that I should be giving my attention to? And, we want to create a relationship with ourselves, but not just any relationship. We want a healthy relationship that's based on self-acceptance, not perfection. And that's where true recovery actually starts. So if you think in terms of what a boundary does, it allows you to keep unwanted out, and so that you can make space for everything that's really sacred or important for you. There's a lot of confusion about boundaries. And, I think people often use boundaries as way to control other people, get them to do what they want them to do. But a boundary is really a decision you're going to make about what kind of life you want and the actions you're going to take to make sure you are taking care of yourself and that you have the life that you want, still allowing other people to be as they are. Now, that doesn't mean that they can do what they want to you, but, and I think of my personal relationships, with my sweetheart. There's things that I would love to change about him, but true intimacy is allowing the other to be as they are and negotiating things together. So
Right.
there's a lot to this stuff, Marissa. I'm still learning, actually. I'm a student, just like all the participants of my course. I'm there learning just like they are.
Right.
Yeah.
So a boundary is potentially a decision on the life I want to live and the actions I take to create that, while
Yeah.
working towards self-acceptance and acceptance of others.
That's it. Because a lot of the boundary definitions, Brene Brown has one that I love and that everybody uses. It's what's okay for you and what's not okay. But if we just leave it there, we've got a problem, because then people start saying, well, I want I want my grown-up kids to come every Sunday for dinner, and I'm putting my foot down and setting a boundary because it's not okay that you don't come. Well, that's not a healthy boundary at all. That's actually that's a control strategy. So that's a wish that you want to be fulfilled. And you can certainly have a conversation, but your adult children, they have lives of their own, and they have their own energy levels that they need to respect, and their own bandwidth and, other things. So coming to your house every Sunday might not serve them or their well-being. And so, I really expanded on a lot of these definitions so that people would understand what, excuse me, a healthy boundary really is. And, I called the course Creating the Container of You, but I probably should have called it Connecting with the Container of You, because the container of you is your body. And the body, it's the container of your emotions and the physical sensations that those emotions create. It also, it houses your energy reserves, and your head is the container for your thoughts and your ideas and your dreams. So if you think of it this way, the inside of the body is where your inner boundaries are.
Right.
And if you want, I can go into what those inner boundaries are. Do you want me to go over them, or?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So an emotional boundary, it allows you to, or it helps you to actually contain your emotions long enough to actually feel them. Because what most of us are doing is we don't like the way they feel. We're getting rid of them as soon as possible by yelling or screaming or taking action, and we're not sitting with our feelings to get the actual messages of those feelings.
Right.
So a strong emotional boundary helps you contain what you feel. And it also helps protect you or keep you separate from painful emotions of another. If you're really empathic and you don't have really good boundaries, you can lose yourself in another person's pain. So that will help you sit with your pain about another person's pain. So you can be more effective and you can be more helpful so you don't fall apart. A mental boundary helps you or allows you to think your own thoughts and to know yourself and have your own opinions and have your own processing style. You have the right to your own processing style. It takes me a while. I can't just answer on the spot. I need time to think it through. So, another thing that people don't realize is that a healthy mental boundary allows you to set limits with unhelpful thinking styles and rumination and mental meddling and, you beating yourself up or worrying. And so this is where mental health really begins, is when you start learning how to set boundaries with the voice inside your head.
Right.
And then, of course, there's the energetic boundaries, which really help shield you from, those high, the intensity of all the people around you and of this world right now, actually. But it also helps protect people from your intensity. And when you have a strong energetic boundary, you have the ability to dial down your intensity so that you can take responsibility for the energy that you bring into a room.
Wow.
I'm still learning this, so I don't want people to think that, I've got this nailed. I don't, but that's the work. It takes a lifetime, but it's the work that's worth doing because it makes such a difference in every area of your life.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I am curious. So, inner boundaries, emotional, mental, energetic. Containing, right? Connecting with our body, our container. Do you, in your coaching, Kelli, do you help people build all three at the same time? Or do you really sense there's a need to start with emotional boundaries or mental boundaries or energetic boundaries?
Oh, that's a really good question. Thanks. Thank you, Marissa. I really show up in the present moment and I coach intuitively. So we show up with what's happening and we just deal with what's happening. So it might be the mental boundaries that we deal with. Yeah, I mean, this work has to be done, sometimes at a snail's pace because you don't want it to be overwhelming. And so, yes, if somebody's coming in and they are really upset and their energy's really big, the first thing we do is start soothing. We get that hand on the head and the hand on the heart and connect the head and the body. I'm safe. I'm safe. You're safe. We're safe. Yeah. So the breath helps with all the boundaries, actually. It's really the anchor to a racing mind, but it also helps soothe the nervous system. It can help ground us in the present moment. And that's where those inner boundaries really begin, is right here, right now, and bringing ourselves down back to the body that's always present. It is, there's different exercises, of course, for grounding, but the breath, it's free of charge and it's always with us. So use it.
Yeah. Yes. I all three resonate, and yet it can't be a coincidence, Kelli, that arguably 4 of the last 5 guests I've had on, themes of the somatic experience, right? The bodily experience of codependency, or our need to connect with the body, or be conscious of our energy and how other people's energy impacts our body. I'm like, okay, I get it, universe. Like, apparently I'm supposed to be connecting more with my body, encouraging the listeners to connect more with their bodies. And speaking of energetic boundaries, I think I've mentioned this already, but I met with a potential guest for a virtual coffee, and the energy, it was so charged and intense, and very quickly, very intuitively, thankfully, no offense to them, but I just sensed, oh, I can't sit for an hour and be okay with this. And I felt like an urge to tame and to calm, right, to control them. And I'm glad we met for our coffee. I'm glad we're going to stay connected. But for me, I discerned, no, we won't have an interview. And that was a first. Who knows how many people I've met with before who were high energy, and I just endured, right? Or not even endure. I wasn't conscious of how it was impacting my body.
Yeah, I think most of us aren't conscious about how it's affecting our body, or how our energy is affecting someone else. I know I certainly wasn't. I still catch myself going, oh, I see that my intensity is way up here. I'm being super intense because I'm passionate about things, and there's nothing wrong with passion. But I have to realize I can't stay at that 10 all the time. It's not good for myself or anyone else. So, I catch myself and I bring it down. I dial it down a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And there's some great exercises that we can do when we go out into this chaotic world that's very noisy energetically. I didn't realize that you can use the imaginal processes. So we visualize. I like to put a big mason jar over myself if I'm around, someone who's super irritating and I can't leave or don't want to leave just yet. Then I imagine this big, huge glass jar that I can still see through, but it muffles it for me. So nothing's really happened. There really isn't a jar around me, but because the mind is so powerful and I've envisioned it, my body calms down. It's really cool. And other people sense it. And what's amazing about this work is we can help soothe other people without them even knowing it, by regulating our body, by slowing our breath, by dialing down if somebody's super intense. But I love what you did. That's self-care right there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you said, it's a lifelong journey, and that there was at least 13 years of therapy and coaching and everything, like in that moment, being able to really really sense the vibration and discern, like her focus, like she'd be perfect to have on for the niche and the focus that she has. And yet, just personally, right now, I know it would be more harmful, more hurtful to sit for that hour. So it's like, I'll talk to Kelli. I'll talk to all these other people, work on my ability to, create mason jars, or I honestly, I don't know if I'll ever be able to handle being around every human on the planet with total peace.
No.
Which is okay.
And that is okay. And it's such a good point because, and I'll make it about myself here. I'll bring it back to myself. I didn't think I was okay. And so I thought I was weird and I didn't really like myself. I was trying to be someone I wasn't. And so that whole self-acceptance, where no part of me is unacceptable, really helped me settle in with who I really am, and then discover I'm kind of a neat, maybe I am a bit weird, but I'm kind of a neat creature. But this doesn't feel good to me. Like I said, I have a highly sensitive nervous system. So this person doesn't feel good to me. And I'm going to honor that. And I don't even have to explain it. I just notice it doesn't feel good. And that is amazing when we can just admit that, and we don't have to make up stories of, I'm weak and I should be able to do this. And, other people can do it. Well, other people don't have your nervous system. So that's
Right.
probably why they can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I am curious, two questions going back to what we've talked about thus far. First, I sense, and maybe a shorter answer, how would you reframe Brene Brown's definition of a boundary? What's okay? What's not okay? What's okay for me? What's not okay for me?
Oh, I love this. I love her, her definition. Let's just say, okay, what's okay for me and what's not okay for me. And I have to honor that for someone else as well. So that means we're going to have a conversation, aren't we?
Right.
Because what's okay for me, and let's say you and I are going to be in a relationship together, might not be what's okay for you. And if we're living together, then who wins?
Right.
So I want to take what she said and just build on it, so that we include, how other people are experiencing being in relationship with us. So again, it comes back to, the people pleaser controller dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Controllers will take that, they will take her words and use them in vain in ways that she didn't mean them, um, as orders of what their partner should do. So what I discovered, that how you set a boundary is through communication. There's different ways, of course. But if you're in a closer relationship, you're going to need to negotiate,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the temperature in the room and where we're going to eat tonight. And I'm going to bed at 9, but he wants to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning. So how do we negotiate that and live together happily? And that's what beautiful boundaries are all about. And that's why they are so great for relationships.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious if you've been a fly on my wall, because that's my husband. Our negotiation, my bedtime, his bedtime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. It's, that's funny because that's my dynamic. Really speaking about myself and my sweet James, he's a real night owl. And so the old me used to try to, again, use those controlling strategies, guilting, and if you really loved me, and we're going to grow close if you don't. And what I realized is that he's allowed to be him and we can negotiate. So what I really want maybe is that feeling of closeness. So come and tuck me into bed, put me to bed, cuddle with me, lay with me for a while, and then slip off and you can watch your, movies or play your games or whatever, and then come back to bed. That works for us. We figured out a life that works for both of us. So someone doesn't have to squash their own identity or needs or desires or preferences to be in the relationship. I mean, hello, that's called enmeshment when that happens.
Yeah.
So I'm working on it. Sounds like you are too.
Yeah. No, you're definitely a fly on the wall, because Adik tucks me in and then he goes, then he lives his life, his best life for all the hours that I'm just asleep. And second, adding on to that, other thoughts or examples on the confusion and control you have either experienced or witnessed with your coaching clients in their initial boundary attempts?
Well, the reason I really geared this course for people pleasers and controllers is because they're really they're two different sides to the same coin, which is unhealthy boundaries that often show up as codependency. And, they both reflect this confusion about what true power is. And so, if you're a controller, it's because you were taught that power is having power over someone. And that's how you get your needs met. Whereas a people pleaser sees power, as security and safety, as pleasing the people in power, the authority. And like a flip of the coin, we can play those either role depending on the circumstance, but both are dysfunctional because both it's a backwards way of trying to get your needs met in a way that ensures you never will.
Right.
The controller is using guilt or pressure or, anger to try to keep people close to them. But guess what? When you use those strategies, people don't want to be close to you. So if I'm working with someone who's presenting as a controller, and I'm going to raise my hand to both, okay? So I'm a recovering people pleaser, recovering controller, right? You've got your hands in the air.
Yes.
Hands in the air. So if I'm working with a controller, then we work with, hey, you're going to learn collaboration, not domination. And, the message that they need to, or start looking at themselves is, I'm not superior, because this idea of power came through this unhealthy way of thinking, this binary way of thinking. Has to be a winner and then there has to be a loser. So that's where you get the bully victim. So there's, if you're strong, then the other person's weak. And so they see themselves as, there's only two choices. I don't want to be weak, so I have to be strong. I don't want to be inferior, so I must be superior. So I just help them come right to that happy middle ground of interdependence, checking in with another. Controllers like to tell people what they're going to eat and how they're going to dress and what they're going to do. And so we start working on actually being in real relationship, which is asking, checking in. What do you want to do? What do you think about this? What do you have to offer? And then they start realizing, oh my God, no wonder I've been so exhausted. I had a partner here who had all this brilliant information that I was treating like a child.
Right.
And I didn't realize they could bring so much to the table, and I don't have to do it all myself. And same with the people pleaser. They think they have to do it all, and they're often angry about it, but they've never actually connected to their needs. So they've never asked for help. It's an interesting thing. And I hope I answered your question, because I think I'm just now meandering, but
No, right. So the confusion with setting boundaries initially for controllers over people who are over controlling.
yes.
It's the Brene Brown initial definition. So what's okay with me and what's not okay with me, period.
Yes, exactly. Period. And they forget about the other person. So they need to learn self-control rather than other control.
Right.
And again, I'll say I needed to learn self-control rather than other control.
And other thoughts on how people pleasers trip up, get confused initially with setting boundaries?
Well, oh my goodness. So I just have so much compassion for the people pleaser, because they are just wringing their hands about saying no. They are just riddled with guilt. They make themselves sick. Again, I'm talking about myself here. I literally was sick. I had chronic fatigue. And I was also had, terrible anxiety, but I was sick all the time with stomach issues and, sinus infections that wouldn't go away. I mean, I was sick, for years of my life.
Wow.
Because I was internally making myself sick. I was so, I wanted to say no and couldn't. And then I would just feel terrible guilt. So,
Right.
depending on the level of severity, we really, really work gently and to help them understand the difference between remorse, guilt, and shame. And that just because you feel guilty doesn't mean you are.
Wow.
And So, a lot of emotional reasoning, because I feel this way, it must be the truth. No. And so I help them really go into their body and start easing where that guilt is, because it shows up in the body. For me, it's right in my solar plexus, and it just cramps up really tight. We just start soothing, like, it's safe for me to say no. It's safe for me to set limits. And we never ever take on the big controlling people in their life first, the scary things. Never start there. It's like having really weak muscles. You're not going to start off with the big, lifting big weights. You have to start off with those little tiny hand weights.
Right.
Or maybe no weights at all. You're just going to be, doing some push-ups or something. But so we start off with really ridiculously easy things to do. So they start gaining a little bit of confidence. They start strengthening that inner muscle, starting with strangers, starting to actually voice their opinion in restaurants. Hey, I didn't order this, because I don't know about you, but I used to actually eat what was put in front of me, even if it wasn't what I had asked for. So that's where it starts for the people pleasers. And they need to know too that they're not helpless, because sometimes they feel like they are.
Right.
That they actually have a lot of inner power. And it's kind of fun to help them get connected to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you share with us? Well, we've talked about the breath. We've talked about the mason jar. We've talked about tuning into, noticing, listening to our container, our bodies.
Yes.
Any other initial step? I guess if anything, like, these are all step zeros to potentially setting a boundary, right? We kind of notice something's off, and then hopefully we'll work towards setting one. But yeah, I feel like this is all bringing conscious awareness to the need for a boundary.
Yes.
Anything else to pay attention to?
Anger. Of course, resentment is from the anger family, but anger is really about boundaries. But sometimes it means that you are treading on another person's boundary. So your inner guardian is going to come up, and it's going to come up as emotion. But anger usually is something's not okay for me, or something's not okay for another. But sometimes it's an alarm to say, hey, you are actually dominating someone here right now. You need to step back. But I would say, pay attention to those, from that family. Resentment, irritation, when you're annoyed, that's the guidance kicking in to say, a boundary probably needs to be set here. What is it? What do I really need? What about this is upsetting me so much?
Right.
And yeah, I agree with you. A lot of times I didn't set boundaries because I didn't have the inner awareness yet to know that it needed to be set. And while we use words to set boundaries, we can also use distance. And I want your listeners to know that if you are ever dealing with somebody who might become violent, you do not use words. You use distance. Get away as fast as you can.
Yeah.
And that's why you would talk to someone like that with text. You wouldn't do a face-to-face.
Right.
Yeah. I have a really interesting tool that's one of my favorites for holding a boundary with grace and ease, that I learned from my coach. Do you want to hear about it?
Yes.
Okay. Yay. I feel like we're two boundary nerds here. I love it. Okay. So let's see if I can get this right. It's one of my favorites, but I might blank on it. So when you set a boundary, and using, my coach she has like this 2 formula, way to set a boundary. It really helps to see the other person as it's their job to try to convince you to do what they want them to do. Think of them like a salesperson. They're going to try to convince you to drop your boundary and do what they want you to do. Because a lot of times we get upset when someone tests our boundary. So if we flip it and say, no, it's their job to come at me. Okay. So right away, you're prepared for it. And then you realize it's their job to convince me to drop my boundary. And my job is to hold the boundary. Suddenly it becomes very simple what your job is. You don't have to go into explaining. You don't have to go into convincing. You don't have to ask for permission. You simply repeat the boundary. So Jaya is my coach. And so she says that there's just two parts to this. You acknowledge what they say. So you affirm what they say, maybe even say something kind about it. And then you hold the boundary. So let's say that your sister decides that she's going to throw a birthday party for your mom, but she wants it to be a hot tub party and she wants everyone to be in the hot tub. And you don't want to be in the hot tub. You're going to go to your mom's party, but you're not going to get into the hot tub. So it could look a little like this. So your sister's going to come at you. But Marissa, it'll be so much fun. And everybody else said they're going to be in the hot tub. And you're going to say, that could be. And I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot of fun. Thank you for wanting me to be a part of that. I won't be getting into the hot tub. Now she's going to come at you again. Oh, but mom, this might be the last time we can ever all be together again and we can get pictures in the hot tub and that would be so funny. Dad said he would do it. Well, you guys are going to have a great time and I can see where that's going to be a lot of fun and I'll be taking the pictures because I'm not going to be in the hot tub. Now she might revert to controlling strategies then, or try to guilt you a little bit. Or shame you. You're being so selfish. I can't believe that you wouldn't do this for mom. You're going to ruin the party. We want you in the hot tub. I might be being selfish. I could see where you could see that, or I can see where you might think that. I'm still not going to be getting into the hot tub. So what's cool about this is that they're the ones skating all over the place, trying to convince you, and you are just grounded and as cool as a cucumber. You don't even have to raise your voice. You might consider some good point that they made, but that can be dealt with later. Right now, you're just holding the boundary, and you get to do that for as long as until they either say, okay, and they honor it, or you've had enough and you say, you know what? I think you need time to process what I've said. I can see that you're angry and upset. And so I'm going to let you be with those feelings, and I'll be back, when you're ready to talk, because I still love you. Isn't it amazing?
I've heard something very similar. Well, I'm sure it is the same thing, just a different name, which is the broken record technique. So you're just the same broken record over and over. It's broken. You just keep you have the same song playing no matter what.
Yeah, that repetition, because this is one thing that I was confused about. And as a people pleaser, it was so hard for me to set that boundary. And so I would become very upset when I'd have to set it again, like when they would test me on, or they'd check in. Are you sure you don't come to the party? You're really going to be missed. And I'm like, and I would just feel so much guilt, and it caused a lot of inner distress. So I thought I was supposed to set the boundary and then that should be it.
Yep.
One time.
That's
didn't
it.
realize that people actually need to check and see if that door is actually locked. Maybe I'm saying I don't want to come because I'm just tired. So they're going to check in again. And so all you have to do is keep saying, no, I'm not coming. They'll check that door again. Is it locked? Oh, it still is locked. And eventually they'll go, oh, it's locked. And they'll leave it alone.
Yeah. I love it.
Me too.
No, I mean thank you for saying that. And I've said it on previous episodes, and also just a really compassionate, healthy reminder to all the listeners. The truth and reality about boundaries is you set them, and then you have to set and reinforce and maintain them over time.
Yes.
until people truly discern, okay, the door is locked, but it's been wide open for decades potentially. So why, it's not a judgment on you or on them, but if something has been going a certain way for years, it's hard to transition to a locked door. So
exactly. Well said. Yeah, it takes time, it takes practice. Stay with it, because it really, boundaries, really are the solution to most of the problems that we have.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, Kelli, this is just so meaningful, and my body is resonating with all of this. So thank you so much. Can you share what you're offering to the listeners?
Yes, if there's any listener out there right now that is interested in the boundary course, then I want to offer it for free of charge. So I've created a promo code, and it's the promo code is Marissa. There's no expiry date on this. So even if you're listening a year later, and you hear this, there's just a limited amount. So it is first come, first serve, but who knows, there might be one left just for you. So yeah. And Marissa, do you have the link for that URL then in the show notes, or?
Yes. We'll put a link. Do you want to say it right now, just so people can?
Well, they could just, if they don't see it, they can just find it at my website, which is www.Kelli, and that's Kelli with an I, not a Y at the end, KelliYounglove.com.
Perfect. Yes. And we'll put links to that in the show notes. And if people want to get in touch with you, they can go to your website.
Absolutely. All my contact information is right there on the website, and I'd love to see them.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And we'll see everybody next time.
Thanks so much, Marissa. I so appreciate you. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Hey, girl. It's Marissa again. I'm not like a regular podcaster. I'm a cool podcaster, right? Thank you for listening and staying till the end. You can find me on Instagram at Therapy with Marissa. Email me, marissa@codependummy.com. Check out codependummy.com for more information on the show. And baby girl, a subscribe, rating, and review would be much appreciated. Till next time, I want you to remember, if you are feeling unseen, I see you. If you are feeling unheard, I hear you. And if you think that you don't matter, know that you matter to me. I want you to go out there so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. And now, the disclaimer. Girl, this is not therapy, and I am not your therapist. This podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regards to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, publisher, or guests are rendering any legal, clinical, or other professional service. If you want or need a professional, please find one.